Hey folks, so today I'm taking apart an infrared heat sauna, and you might not be able to tell because it's partly taken apart already what these things are. You might have seen these online. These are the FIR near field infrared portable saunas is what they're called. And you put your feet on here if you want, and that heats up, as well as three large heating elements on these foldable sides. To get in here was not as difficult as I had imagined. It's actually designed to be serviceable somewhat, which is a surprise. You'll notice that this cover is now off. What I had to do was basically unzip the bottom of it. Whoops. And once you unzip the bottom, this part here, you can start moving it out of this kind of feels like a cardboard, but it's a type of plastic. And then there's a little string. So they've actually mounted everything using just like a nylon rope. And the knots are not super tight either, which is nice. So you undo the knots here, and then you start to undo the knot on the other side over here, and then you can. And I think there's one more kind of up high here. And you undo those two knots on each side, and then you can actually take off this guy, which you can wash it, which is nice. Mine is in desperate need of cleaning because you sweat in this thing, right? It gets smelly. And then after you've done that, you go around to the other side here in this edge on the other side, and there's another knot with two ropes basically tied together. And once you get that off, you can start pulling off this guy. So the reason I'm doing all this, I know I try not to hack or modify things that are working these days, unless they're, I don't know, at least for expensive items like this, large, somewhat expensive items. But I smelled something burning, and there it is. You can see the contact there. It looks burnt. So I don't know why that is. I'm going to inspect the heating elements, and I'm hoping that this heating element isn't shorted out and messed up, because that might not be repairable. Hoping it's just a bad connection or something. But yeah, I guess maybe, I don't know what would cause that, leaning against it. I don't know. The quality of this thing is nothing to get too excited about. You can see here there's two screws here that hold on the control board casing. So I might undo that and take a look if there's any like fuses and stuff inside the control board. Give this a little bit of TLC. But yeah, before I go do all that and make a second part to this video, I just want to give my thoughts that this is actually, although it's not, exactly the highest quality manufacturing by any standard, it works quite well, and I really like it. And it's actually really helped me quite a lot. So yeah, just giving that vote of confidence for anyone looking to buy one of these. They're quite nice when they're working. And I'm going to inspect and find out why this one's not. Part 2 coming up after this. All right, here I am now inside the controller board of the FIR portable infrared sauna. You have to take this off, which explains what it is. Portable far infrared ray. And it's got all these little precautions. But this sticker is over the cover where the 4 screws are. They're all Phillips screws, which is convenient. They come out pretty easily. But now we have a look at the circuit board, and there's one thing missing that I'm quite bummed about. And that is there are no fuses for the individual outputs. There's a single mains glass fuse here, which looks like a fast blow right here. And I'll try to zoom in so you can get a better shot of all this. And so you have a transformer, a little bridge rectifier. This part of the circuitry is for the control module. The control module, of course, is got the microcontroller and presumably a FET that switches everything on and off. You can't control individual sides. I'm sure the way it's controlling the temperature is a PWM type deal. But it's remarkably simple. And you can see they have a design here for a heatsink to go across this, but then decided not to for this guy. And so yeah, you've got two transistors here for the AC power, and then they output through these red cables, which are pretty dinky for AC. In fact, very dinky for AC, but maybe they're not, they're not full waveform. The peak to peak is reduced. But the one thing that is promising is you'll see there is an N3, N2. So that leads me to believe that there is an NTSC thermistor measuring the temperature to check for faults, but there's no logic from that thermistor. So it's just, I guess it is being read. It's going over here. So the thermistors go over here, and then they're read by the controller. But you can see why there's a failure, because it's not actually measuring current, it's not measuring voltage, and there's no fuse. That's a bummer. I sure would love to have one of these with a little more monitoring. It could have caught this fault very easily. But, these things are extremely affordable for what they are. This whole thing, I think, is about $200, and this is an older model. But let me show you what happened to mine, although I'm still not 100% sure what the cause was. I took off the thermal tape here, and let me get some light on this because it's hard to see right now. And you'll see that doesn't look good at all. So there's some pop rivets for the heat. Obviously, you can't just solder that connection. Which means it's not that easy to remove either and inspect and see what went wrong. But yeah, that's where the burning was from, clearly. And if this had current monitoring, it could have detected that there's an overcurrent and stopped that from happening. So yeah, that's a bit frustrating. Question is, how am I going to get another one of these panels if this is the thing that's actually wrong? And not the controller, and it sure doesn't seem like the controller is the problem because everything else works. So the question is, why did this short out when it wasn't really anything happening? It was just heating up for maybe 10 minutes, if that. And the problem is too, it's stapled in. So this is where the actual repair ability gets to be a little frustrated. It's all held in by staples and like tape. You can see the other staples down here. So yeah, I mean, I don't have like a staple gun. I might need to get one just to do this repair. And the reason why I care while the other two heating elements are working, but this one is not, is because this is the biggest one, I think, or maybe they're the same size. Actually, they're the same size. But this one, yeah, I mean, you get a third less heat. So, it doesn't really heat up that well in that scenario. So I'd like to do something about that. And I will see what I can do. I've been toying with the idea of improving the microcontroller. And maybe I can take that apart next or at a later date. I just didn't want to mess with it while it's working, but since it's not working, I might. This is the controller, and they've made like newer ones. It's got a really annoying piezo beeper that I'd love to pull out. I always take out those stupid piezo beepers. And these buttons are a pain. Would love to improve this. 900 watts. Yeah, that's a good chunk of power. So yeah, maybe I'll improve that while I'm doing all this. But anyway, giving you a little insight into what this FIR portable sauna looks like. All right, so here I am back with the infrared sauna repair. And it's actually successful, even though it doesn't, at least so far, it doesn't look that great. But it does work now. A little bit of an overview. You can see here the problem where it was burning around the contacts for the back heating element. I did a little bit of research, and I'll try to post in the link what this heating element is. I found the manufacturer, kind of got lucky by searching over here. If you put your finger, you can see there's a little bit of writing, and it's upside down, but it says 350 and then asterisk 970 or 670 millimeters. And I put that in a search and was able to find out the manufacturer from that, which is pretty sweet. And these are just large. They print these in massive rolls. You can get like 1,000 feet of this stuff. And it's used for infrared heating. And unfortunately, it's one of the most expensive parts. In fact, it's the most expensive part of this. So the fact that this particular one was broken, especially because it's the back one, it's the most important one, that was a bummer. There's actually 3 of them in this thing, and they're just covered with this cloth. And they are actually coated in PET plastic, which is good for quality's sake, but bad when you need to repair it because you can't dissolve PET very easily. And so you have a very, very thin conductive element. It's like a foil in here, only thinner than foil. And so that very, very thin element is sandwiched between 2 sheets of PET that you can't dissolve. So like, it's really quite frustrating because as you can see, there wasn't anything else to anchor here after the original contact had burned and melted away. So it took some work. I ended up taking out the metal contacts that were here, sanding them down really well, and then using a lot of patience and tweezers and a sanding bit with my rotary tool, my portable rotary tool. I gently kept sanding down in a circular motion, the PET, and then eventually was able to use tweezers to pry up without damaging this. As you can see, it still works fine. Now the original is pop rivets, which I can show you from the working one on the right-hand side, which is, pretty standard for these sort of things. You can see there's try to zoom in a little better. Sorry, it's really hard to get the lighting and everything with this particular weird angle. This isn't the kind of project you can put on a desk, obviously. So it's a little finicky. Give me a second here. But yeah, hopefully you can see that. There's just these 2 pop rivets here. And I don't know what. I think the contacts are silver. And then there's just a, protective, heat-resistant tape over it, and then of course some foam backing as well. Obviously this is a super dangerous repair. I'm going to be very, very careful with this thing. So I sanded it down, and then I don't have a pop rivet gun, so I ended up just using M2 screws. The pop rivets are about 2 millimeters, like 1.5, 1.8. So I did a little bit of drilling, a little bit of tapping, and got 2 M2 screws in there with a couple M2 nuts, and fired it up after putting an inline fuse. Very important. And you might wonder, well, how did I know what power rating to make the fuse? Well, I measured from the working one. These 3 panels are actually the same size. And if you measure a working one across the contacts, you should get around 50 to 55 ohms. And this is actually a really simple circuit. It's just a switch. The controller is just a switch that, an AC switch essentially, that's with an NTC thermistor. And it reads the thermistor but for temperature and switches on these 3 panels simultaneously. There's one switch for all 3. And so all 3 of them come from mains voltage. And in the case of where I am in North America, it's 120 volts. So 120 volts times 2, since you have a 50 ohm load, gives you 240 watts. So yeah, these things are cooking quite a bit, which is the idea, right? It's a sauna. So you have 240 watts times 3. What is that? 720? Something like that. No, am I doing that math right? Boy, I feel really dumb right now. Yeah, that's 720. Anyway, it's rated at 900 watts. So I don't know. I guess there's some power loss in the switch. But yeah, it gives you an idea of the power rating, which is kind of nice. And what else can I say? There's a really simple 5-volt AC to DC circuit in the controller box, which of course goes to the microcontroller. The microcontroller, of course, is all in the handheld computer part, which is this thing. The microcontroller is actually in here. It's not just buttons and LEDs. And so, yeah, the microcontroller is just going to be it's like a really simple microcontroller, I'm sure. It doesn't even do PWM or anything. It just outputs on or off. There is a separate on or off for the foot heating pad. That is the only thing that has a separate on or off, but the other 3 are all powered from the start. And then as far as temperature, all that does is supposedly it tells there's a timer, of course, so the microcontroller has that capability, but then the temperature, all it does is it tells the microcontroller when to turn off the 120 volts going to these 3 panels based on the NTC temperature that it's reading. So a couple of problems can arise from that. One is, how good is the NTC reading in the first place? The NTC thermistor, I'm pretty sure, comes down in this cable and in the back. It's just in this back panel. The 2 others do not have NTSC readings at all. And in fact, they have much thicker gauge wire. They have this nice thick AC wire, whereas this panel does not. And it's really kind of a problem, I think. It needs to have beefier wiring, which I will do later. I do have some spare AC cord that I harvested a while back that'll work great for this. But it's actually got some pretty thin gauge wire, especially for 240 watts AC. Yeah, that's more work to do. But ideally, I would really like to replace the NTC. It's a passive NTC. I have no faith in it being accurate or good at all, which I think is part of the reason why this broke, honestly. This was running for a while, and there's 2 things working against it. So whenever I repair something, I try to figure out what broke, what actually went wrong. So obviously, for obvious reasons, right? You want to make sure you understand why it broke, so you know, A, how it's, to keep it from breaking again, and B, it kind of helps what repairs are needed, where the fault actually occurred. Just because there's a burn mark here doesn't mean that if you fix this, everything else is going to be fine. So adding a fuse, of course, is going to help. Adding the screw terminals instead of the old pop rivets is going to help. I do believe it's possible that some of this is from the condensation, from the sweat. As you can see here, like this staple, it's actually got these long staples kind of holding stuff down. And as you can see, this one's already rusted from condensation from the sweat. So that's part of it too, and I'm sure that's why this tape is over in part as well. So you've got, a number of things to think about in a sauna. You've got liquids, you've got heat, and of course you've got to think about power and fuse protection. So there you go. This is a boring video for a lot of you probably, but for anyone that's interested in repairing these infrared saunas or knowing how they work, I thought this information would be very useful, and like all of my videos, I try to post information that's not available elsewhere, not readily available. By the way, I am going to contact the manufacturer about just getting a whole new sheet of these. They do sell them by the piece for about $10. Shipping, of course, will be more than that. But who knows? Maybe they'll reply and be nice and send me a spare so that I can just replace this whole janky one. But I wanted to get this working right away. This has been helping me a lot, and I really love it when it's working. Ideally, if you're interested, if this video helped you in some way, please let me know. I love hearing from folks, especially if they're able to repair stuff. And if you would like to see me develop a new controller board for this infrared sauna, also let me know. I have so many projects I'm doing all the time, but this is definitely, I feel like this is another one I want to add to the list because I know I could do this so much better with a proper NTC, a proper microcontroller. Basically, everything can be made better except for the timer. The timer's nothing fancy. And I would love to make like a triple fuse protection for this, triple NTSC readings, possibly some other features. And it's all very doable. It's just, matter of my availability and people's interest. So that's it for this video. Thanks for checking out. This is Segasonicfan. I don't really care if you subscribe or anything like that. I hope this video helped you. That's why I make them. Signing out. All right, folks. the portable infrared sauna is working again, and I'm quite happy about that. This is going to be a shaky camera video because I have to show you stuff that a tripod does not really work for. We've got our controller module. As I explained before, it's really quite simple in the earlier part of this series of this repair. And I got the case back on. I didn't tie the knots super tight for the fabric cover. As you can see, it sticks out a little bit, but the tape's on there. I've been, gently feeling it while it's been on the damaged joint. And it looks like it's holding up with those M2 screws, which is quite nice. I'm trying to figure out what originally caused it to fail. I know sometimes my back would hit the back of this, and this also, the chair height kind of comes a little bit close, but it's, I don't know, it's still like 2 inches away from that contact. So, still a bit of a mystery what caused it to break. It could have just been installed incorrectly as well, with a little bit too much of a gap between the film, the heating film, and those contacts. I also sent a message to one of the manufacturers in China to see if I can get a replacement one of these. If I'm lucky, I'll be able to get a whole replacement film for about $10 plus shipping. But that's the ideal outcome of this, because then it'll feel safe again. I still have the controller board taken apart. I'm going to show you, or at least partly taken apart. The case is a bit of a nightmare to get back on. And everything was done, kind of with ultra budget in mind, which is to be expected. Now, what I've done here is added an inline 5 by 20 millimeter replaceable fuse for that particular panel. I ordered some more of these so I can have one for each output, and that'll help. What I did notice is that this inside here, it gets extremely hot as well, which means that does not have adequate heat sinking for the controller board either. I kind of want to put a cooling fan on the back, although I'm debating how to do that because I also don't want to hear fan noise while I'm relaxing in it. I took the sticker off, so that's why you see a little bit of sticker residue. I had to do that to get to the 4 screws under here. The reason why it's a bit of a nightmare to put back on is the slots for the cables, half of them are on the bottom plate and a couple are on the top plate. So you can't just like slot all the cables in and put the cover on top like 99% of cases are designed. Have no idea why it's that way. Maybe it's reused from something else. It's really quite odd. The controller cable, though, is in as well as the AC power cable. There is a fuse, but given that this thing already kind of burned a bit, I highly recommend leaving this unplugged when not in use and then just plugging it in every time. It's a bit annoying, but this thing is, it's pretty dangerous. I don't trust that the controller can't automatically turn this on accidentally. I'm going to do my own upgrades, and once I get my own controller in there, I'll feel a lot safer. I also do not think that this is actually measuring temperature at all, because that's the other reason I think this probably failed. I don't think the NTC readouts are accurate or working at all. They're also the NTSC, not talking about television signals here. The NTC thermistor is also behind. It's right about here on the back side, which also doesn't help, understand the temperature of all 3 panels working together. And like I said, I don't think it's working at all because I've never had this actually shut off. Even running it for a really long time, I've never had it shut off like it should from temperature. It's only supposed to go up to 150. I don't know if that's C or Fahrenheit. I'd assume that's Fahrenheit. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to look into that as well. But yeah, ultimately you're looking at a 240 watt load per panel. Especially this back panel does not have thick enough gauge wires to handle that load appropriately. You have what very much seems to be an overheating power supply with very little protection circuitry. You only have 1 NTC for the back panel here and 1 NTC for the foot pad down here. And quite sure that this particular one is not functioning. So I would really like to replace that with a UART programmable NTC probe. Those are quite affordable. I have them on hand. Yeah, what else can I say? I mean, the controller also has this annoying piezo beep and really hard to press buttons that I'm no fan of. I would like to upgrade this. I think it would be really nice if I upgraded this. But at the very least, I got to get the cooling fan for the... at the very least, I got to get fuse protections for all 3 panels, replace this panel ideally, get the cooling fan for the control module and or bigger heatsink. Look into some increased AC line protection as well. Might be a good idea for the mains. And yeah, get an NTC with a. I might even just hook up an external controller, separate controller for now, just to monitor temperature accurately, because that's a fire hazard. So yeah, basically these are the things that I'm going to do for mine. I feel like these are like the bare minimum, honestly, for safety. So yeah, as much as I love this thing and it's really been helping me, and it's really great if you have like joint pain and stuff, it really is not super safe. Not even, I don't know, it's like bottom of the barrel safe. It's really quite dangerous. So don't operate these unattended, of course. And you know, I have a fire extinguisher actually about 10 feet away, so I'm not too worried. And it's also near a sink where I can, you know, get water quickly if anything happens. But yeah, anyway, something you should know about these. They're not safe. And I'll post more information later if people are interested. Hopefully this repair was useful to people. Also, just one other thing for review purposes. I'm not a very large person, and I feel totally crammed in this thing. My feet never even seem to really make it to the pad, partly because I think that cable is too short. The foot pad needs to be able to extend further than it actually does. But yeah, if you're like an average size grown person, it's not super comfortable. It does work, and it is great when it's working, but something else to keep in mind. Overall, I love this thing. It's why I repaired it, but I do have to get the safety features a little better. And also another thing you can do when you're heating up is just put this pad over, give it like 5 minutes tops, and it'll be nice and warm. You flip this up and unzip it. You can go inside, and you can unzip these to get your arms out if you want to read a book or something. So it's got some cool stuff like that. And yeah, that's it for this review and repair info. Segasonicfan, signing out.